Okay, welcome everybody. A little bit of a late start. Welcome to the Seattle Revit User Group. The sunshine outside I think has got us all moving a little bit slow, so we started a little slow, but that's okay. We'll be able to get through a lot of this stuff and get everybody underway at a reasonable time. A little bit of a smaller group today. Maybe it's kind of that isolated topic, or maybe it's the sunshine, combination of both. I'm not really sure, but that's okay. We'll take it. We'll just keep on going. You know, the great thing about recording these things too, you can catch up on them back at the office or wherever. And only thing, if you're listening right now, then you're just missing the great lunch and camaraderie. Too bad for you. Maybe we'll see you next month. So, anyways, my name is Rob Bendix. I'm the president of the Seattle Revit User Group. Thank you for coming out. As most of you know, we're a Revit-centric user group. We're really based on providing presentations, being a very collaborative learning environment for everybody. We definitely pride ourselves on making sure that we try to contribute to all disciplines and, contractors, owners, engineers, architects, interiors, students, etc., future professionals. So rather than getting, drilling down too specific on a group, just, all about that Revit and collaborative nature that we're trying to do with in our industry. First meeting, I know there's a few people here at their first meeting, right there. Anybody else? Few people? Okay, well great, thanks for coming out. So I asked this last month, and I didn't get a lot of response because I think everybody was still downloading it. Revit 2013, has anybody had a chance to play with it yet? Get in there a little bit? Cool, yeah, definitely want to get into that. Pretty much, I think a lot of people would agree that's a pretty major step. I think Revit, year after year, these releases are making pretty drastic steps each release. So it's always interesting to see. I don't know many people. I mean, there are a few, but I really don't know many people that kind of skip releases, except for maybe the 2010. Yeah, a little hiccup there, but. Yeah, just because there's so many new enhancements that just seem to be coming out that really help out. Every time something new comes out, every release comes out, there's always a chunk of items that we really need to help us perform and move forward. So it's good to see that we're all kind of progressing together. Are there any favorites for those that have, any shout outs, any comments? Really? I have a whole list. How about the resizing of the dialog boxes for the type properties? Yay! No? Come on, it was a good one. I thought so. I don't know how productive you are with it, but it's pretty nice to be able to do some of these things. But anyways, I'll actually get into some areas that you can go dig in and find your favorite features. Maybe we'll get you some shout outs next time. Planning on... Okay, who here, obviously this is topic specific, so hopefully I'm not taking up too many questions of what you're going to throw out there. Taking plan the next step in collaboration by using a tool like Revit Server or something similar by the end of this year. Maybe it's even testing it out. JR, okay, good. How about end of 2013? It's on people's roadmap to do something like this, to be prepared for it? Yes? Okay, good. Everybody should say yes, because this is something that no matter what you're doing and who you're working for, if you're working for a small group, whether Revit Server is your tool or not, this is something that all of us in this BIM environment is going to have to tackle at one point or another. So hopefully it is on at least on your radar. Single office environment, anticipating the request of this coming down the pipe? The smaller groups out there saying, oh, I'm not using it yet, but I might, I know someone's going to ask me someday, so I better be ready for it. Okay, well, that's cool. That's good. Glad to see that you guys are staying ahead of it. A couple other things. We definitely want to obviously give some recognition to all of our sponsors throughout the course of the year. PPI, IMAGINiT, and ID8 are our executive partners, and IMAGINiT is actually our host sponsor for this month, so we'll hear from them in a few minutes. Our premier partners, Quarry Group, ARC, and ABC Imaging, as well as our associate partners, a lot of the firms in the area and groups, GLY Construction, Mulvaney G2, Lydate Construction, PCS Structural Solutions, Slater Partner Architects, BN Builders, and FSI Consulting Engineers. We definitely thank for their contributions. If you do have any questions or about the associate sponsorship, please feel free to see me after the meeting. You can also go up to the website, check out, we got some information on our sponsorship info link, or you can just email sponsors@SeaRUG.org. A couple other items, past SeaRUG meetings available for viewing. We were a little late in getting our last month's session put up there, but it is posted now. So go check that out. You may have seen it on the email blast for this meeting, that it was up there and available for viewing. So go check that out. This is one of the items I was referring to, the Autodesk Building YouTube page. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to check this out. I did mention this last month. I just think it's worth mentioning because there's a lot of good stuff up there. Some of it's tip of the iceberg and just general overview information, but still it's good information to get you started on a lot of the different product demos, their information. And if you search the Revit 2013, they have a whole series of introductions of new features for all the 2013 products. Revit Technology Conference, I've been mentioning this the past couple of months. And Australia is next week. Anybody going to Australia? No? Okay. I was going to ask for your ticket. North America is coming up in June. Someone's going. Then, yeah, you're going. Yeah, I'm jealous. I wish I was going. I'm going next year. That's what I'm shooting for. Wait till the cash flow starts rolling in a little bit more steadily, then I'm going for sure. North American, let's say more registration information at revitconference.com.au. And also, many of you probably saw the announcement for Autodesk University. Everybody knows it's the week after Thanksgiving every year. They just sent out their announcement that registration for AU Online members begins August 28th. So if you do plan on attending that, I'd start cycling the paperwork now for approval if you need to, or if you don't, just, I guess, put it in your calendar. AU Online members, to be a member, it's actually free. So you can hop on there and you can get then you get a chance to register before everybody else. I think it's like a week or so that you get an opportunity to register before it opens up to the general public. And then if you are one of those individuals interested in trying to submit for a presentation to see if you can get a free ride, well, at least for the conference fee anyways. Deadline for that's coming up really quickly, May 22nd, so something to think about. All right. Open up Revit 2012 or 2013 and say, what the heck is that? What's that button? Anybody know? Somebody's got to know. Please tell me someone knows. What is it? Thank you. That is the link to the Autodesk Exchange website. If you haven't checked this out, you definitely want to. It's rather new, so I would anticipate that you're going to see a lot more stuff coming up there. This is like your Android market or your app store for Autodesk products. So definitely go check it out. There's a lot of stuff up there, all for product specific. These are all these little utilities and plugins that developers are creating. Some of them are free, some of them are trials, and of course pay to play. So, but still, it's a lot of good stuff to go check out. A lot of times we don't always know where we can go to get certain apps or plugins, different product sites. So it's a great collection. There's a lot of different groups out there, and even IMAGINiT's got some tools up there. You see right there, that's their room renumber tool, which is actually pretty slick if you've never tried that out. If you want to renumber all your rooms in one fell swoop, you can do that. Some of our other resellers like ID8 Explorer, there's Intelligence, Revit Family tools, Elevators. Let's see that Stadia. That's a for rendering, for real-time rendering inside your Revit model. So lots of cool stuff up there that these developers are putting out. It's a great portal to get all that. And so it actually, not just for Revit, but all the product lines have some sort of content that's building for them. So definitely go check that out. Autodesk Labs. I mentioned I was talking Autodesk Labs a little bit last month, and so I'm not going to delve into that, but the eTransmit plugin for Revit 2012 is still out there, but I found it really kind of interesting because when I was downloading some stuff from my subscription site the other day, I noticed that the eTransmit extension for Revit 2013 was available. By my surprise, I didn't get a notification or anything, I just kind of saw it there. So it is there for subscription members and as an extension. So, but they haven't pulled it off the lab site yet, which was weird. So it didn't say it was a graduated product, so I was a little confused at how the transition happened there. But hey, oh well, it's up. I was able to download it, install it. It adds it to your add-in tab. The eTransmit tool is much like all the other ones, but I like it a lot because it kind of gives you that tool for even just for archiving, not necessarily bundling and sharing with other parties, which I'm sure there's some of these collaborative discussions that we'll have today on different options. The eTransmit tool might even be able to tie into some of those functions. But one thing I found was interesting. All your models have to be closed. It's one of the few things that actually lights up when all your models are closed, and you actually bring up your ribbon tab and you go to the add-ins. It's like the only thing that's lit up that you can access and use. And what it does is actually I just captured a quick screenshot of all the different options that you have up there. You can create a transmittal, linked Revit models, CAD links, DWF markups, decals even, external keynote file, that's actually kind of slick. And it basically just captures, like wrap it all up and I want you to place it here and all that good stuff. So that's a pretty nice tool that I'm sure a lot of you would like to maybe check out. So just thought that'd be good information to share. Okay, now moving on to our sponsor recognition. So definitely the SeaRUG community definitely appreciates our sponsors coming in. Hey guys, well, thanks for joining us. And their support definitely makes all these things possible. With the lunches, the space, coming out doing these presentations for us and sharing their expertise. It really means a lot, so we really appreciate it. And this month, our host sponsor is IMAGINiT Technologies, and so I'd like to introduce Greg Bow, who's a senior sales rep here in Seattle, and he will introduce our main presenter as well. So, thank you, Greg.
Thank you. Oh, there will be a drawing.
There will be a drawing
at the end of the meeting.
So I'm going to come up there while he's talking, and I'll come up and collect up some cards. We're
supporting local businesses.
Yes. We have Amazon. We have a $50 Amazon card and two $25 Starbucks cards. I think you don't need enough coffee.
Good morning. Thank you for participating in the Seattle Revit User Group meeting today. My name is Greg Bow. I'm with IMAGINiT Technologies. My colleague Bryan Cowles will be presenting here in just a couple minutes. Couple of quick orders of business that I wanted to point out to you as news on the IMAGINiT front. I have no PowerPoint slides here for you today. So there are a couple of links I would simply like to point out to you. The first, and since this was not quite live the last time we were here last October, we had a big debutante ball of an overhauled portal called Productivity Now at IMAGINiT, where we now house basically all of our valuable client information, webcasts, our e-learning system is contained within here, everything to do with technical support. If you have a technical support contract, all of your cases would be tracked in here. If you aren't a paid client in our Productivity Now portal, there are still a lot of resources in here that are at your disposal. A couple things that I really like and that I often point out to people, whether on the phone or in person, we keep a library now of all of our webcasts that we conduct, and we do conduct a lot of them. What you'll find up here now is the recent run of what's new in the 2013 product line, and then in addition to this, we also conducted one big 3-day online event called the IMAGINiT Know It All event. That's actually found at a separate link. It's just simply imaginit.com/know-it-all. So if you participated in that event, and I don't know about you, but when I sit and watch webcasts, I usually catch about 7 minutes of an hour-long webcast. So if you'd like to go back and review any of that information, it's all there on demand for you to review. A big item of the day here now for us, and that we've been pretty excited about here at IMAGINiT, is a piece of development that we've recently launched called Clarity for Revit Server. And this is something that Bryan will get into a little bit more specifically later today. But one thing for a number of you that we've spoken with about this product, we have rolled out in the first incarnation of Clarity it really has only been one product, so it has been kind of sub-labeled the enterprise version of Clarity. It's the product that we've made to suit companies that have multiple offices, or are sharing Revit servers across 20, 30, 40 locations. So as some people have pointed out, it is also priced accordingly. We are about to release next Tuesday the work group version of Clarity, which is basically contains the same level of functionality, and it is just simply limited to 2 projects and 25 users. So for some of you with whom we've discussed this, that would be a perfectly fine option. So it is also priced accordingly. If you are interested, we can discuss that. So that is about all I have to say today. I thank you again for the opportunity to be here. And I would like to introduce my colleague, Bryan Cowles, who is going to get into some of these collaboration topics and answer the question, what is Autodesk 360? And Buzzsaw and Vault Collaboration and Revit Server. Anything else?
We'll dabble into Clarity.
Okay, there you go.
Thanks, Bryan. All right. Well, thanks everyone for having me. This is, I believe, my 3rd time presenting here at the user group. And this room doesn't get any less daunting when you're down here, especially when they close the vault on you and the meeting starts. There's nowhere to go. So my topic today is all things collaboration. The bulk of my presentation is going to be Revit Server, but we're going to talk all sorts of the different Autodesk offerings, as well as additional tools made by third parties. One of them's ours. Most of them are not ours, but we're going to talk about as many as we can fit into the next hour. So a quick agenda. We're going to talk basic collaboration, how you're likely doing it today, and using some of the extended tools that is now being provided as some of Autodesk's subscription offerings. Then, where they apply, and then we'll look at some of the next steps. And this is getting into Revit Server specifically. And this, again, is going to be the bulk of my presentation. The benefits, the challenges, the limitations. I even got some troubleshooting tips. Do we have any IT professionals in here? A couple. All right. That's where you guys are really going to love this. And then we'll talk a little bit about our tool, IMAGINiT. So before I really dive in, I want to talk very specifically about 2 kinds of collaboration that we're going to be discussing today. The first one is inside your own enterprise. Whether it be a single or multi-office firm, one company. sharing over a wide area network, FTP, VPN, remote desktop, maybe even dabbling into Revit Server a little bit. Does anyone here use VPN or remote desktop across? All right, excellent. Is anyone looking into Revit Server? Sorry, my back was to you. All right, we got 3 or 4, perfect. The other one is collaborating outside of your organization. That's where your design team needs to collaborate with an engineering design team, with the contractors, anyone who also needs to access these models. Again, our common ones are FTP, project file management tools like Buzzsaw, like Project Point. There's several out there. Remote desktoping is also an option. And then we're going to talk a little about Revit Server with our add-in IMAGINiT Clarity. So I would imagine this is how you are currently collaborating today. The owner gives the architect a specific set of requirements, and that information gets passed around. And as models are developed, everything is nicely going from each pool to each pool to each pool, right? Well, whose workflow actually looks a little more like this? That's actually probably a little bit more accurate there. So I thought that was a really good slide to break the ice about. That's probably how we're really collaborating. So let's talk about some of the common applications. So we're not just talking Revit files or just AutoCAD files. There's a ton of information that's going along with our products or our projects. Emails, Word documents, PDFs, specification sheets, manufacturer cut lists, all sorts of information that we're receiving for these projects. We're also probably using FTP sites. Now, I pulled a pretty cool stat that was from a website called what's the download time.com, I think is what it was. And with a T1 line, I'm taking a ballpark guess that some of your Revit files are about 350 meg. Some are bigger, some are smaller. But with a T1 line, which is usually average, 34 minutes and 10 seconds approximately to download or upload that file. And that's if you've got a pretty steady connection. If you do have a T3 line, you're still looking at 8 to 10 minutes per there. Now that's just one file. You may have 3, 4, 5 different models that you're always uploading and downloading and uploading and downloading. And the real bummer here is as soon as you hit the upload button, you're breaking the live model. It's no longer live, it's now a snapshot. Also, using FTP sites, work sharing within your own team is not an option. So let's look at some of the tools. Oh, one more thing. Anyone here using WAN accelerators? Yeah, we got a couple. Now, WAN accelerators isn't necessarily a piece of software, it's a piece of hardware that the IT professionals need to install, configure, and this is just accelerating the speed that the data is getting transferred at. Now, there's a lot out there. The main thing I want you to take away from WAN accelerators is, yes, they do speed up the transfer of information, but they're not doing anything to help with that information. They're not purpose-built for Revit files or anything along those lines. And that's where Revit Server actually is going to come in. So before we hop into Revit Server, let's talk about some of the collaboration tools that Autodesk is starting to offer, most of which are just subscription add-ins. So first, has anyone launched their Autodesk 360 site? As a subscription customer, you have space up there. Use it. You just use your Autodesk ID and log in, and you can access this information. Now, what 360 does is it's a place for in-the-cloud file sharing and storage. And this can be most file types, and a good amount of the Autodesk file types have viewing capabilities where you can open it up and it will be a DWF. You can zoom around, pan around. If it's a 3D model, you can actually orbit, select items, get properties from it. But it's all in a nice online read-only environment. You can also do markups. They've tied in some of the design review capabilities into 360, so you can mark it up there. The markups get saved into that file. You can download the file, link it into your Revit drawings or your AutoCAD drawings. Is that a bad word? And do the markups, and then re-upload a new version of that file. Also, it's tying into Autodesk's cloud services. If you're using 2013, you may notice there's a few new options up in your ribbon. Render in the cloud, analyze in the cloud, This is so you can send your information up to Autodesk's big supercomputer and get your information back in a fraction of the time, and you also have the option to post it up there. Now, I do want to point that the data speed is a little bit slower, and it's also not live. Now, we'll see how well the internet is going to behave here. So this is Autodesk 360 if you've never logged into it. It's a web page. We got this splash screen here, which is talking about everything that has happened within my environment. When someone has shared a file with me, uploaded a new file, I edited some markups yesterday, I uploaded a new version, and I can come through and actually, when I post a DWF, it gives me some thumbnails, and I can click on any of those and start viewing this. Also notice I can access my 360 renderings, green building design, my design studio analysis reports. They can all get posted up here as well. When I go to Documents, you can come right here, and I'll go ahead and just open up this DWF file. You can see it's going to prepare my viewer. And this is where I may need to revert to my videos that I have pre-recorded that's going to cut out a lot of this wait time. Yeah, so there we are. So as you can see, I can come through, look at my sheets and list here, ultimately giving users and key project players access to the files without them actually needing to open the files. Who would agree that there's some people in your company that you never want opening Revit? Absolutely. Give them access to this, they can see those files and run with them. Now, as you're going, notice I can upload a new version. I can download this, I can pick who I want to share this with. I can also come back to my documents, and this was one of my favorite features. If I go here to my Revit file, look right here under versions, it is tracking how many times I've uploaded and changed this file. I can right here just upload a new version, but right here I can revert to a previous version. So if you saved it on Thursday night and someone on Friday morning opened it up and really made a mess of it and accidentally uploaded it, you can revert back if you don't have those backup files readily available. So that's just a really quick look at 360 there. We'll dive into some more features of 360 that are also in Buzzsaw. I just didn't want to take all the flair out of Buzzsaw here. So 360 is really a cloud-based tool that you use to kind of manage your own files. That's the key there. Now, Buzzsaw is more built on the similar technology, but is more for project management and file access, of course, still. Now, this allows you to exchange your project documents, designs, models, as well as any other data that you want to assign, but you can centralize your information according to groups, companies, start assigning permissions to projects so you can only see this folder of files, and maybe you can only see a subfolder in that folder of files. You can then assign read-only access, read-write access, download access. So it's more controlling than the 360 module. It also has the online BIM viewing, the design review, the markups that we're going to see here. But once again, I just keep on reiterating this. As soon as you hit that upload button, your model's no longer live. It's a snapshot of it. And that's where Revit Server is going to come in. So let's jump into Buzzsaw. You'll see it looks very similar. This is kind of a welcome screen to talk about what's in here. I just like to close that, and it logged me out. There we are. So you see I can come into my projects, and if I had permission to these, I would see them. If I didn't, I wouldn't. But I'm going to come in and go to my collaboration folder and take a look at my Revit sample. Now, I could have went and looked at some of those AutoCAD drawings. Now, the thing I want to point out here is what is that file extension on that file? It's an RVT. I didn't need to export a DWF or anything. I just uploaded the RVT file. And when I go and click on it, there we are, what it does is behind the scenes it has generated some DWFs, but I didn't actually have to tell it to do that. So here I can come in and look at floor plans, ceiling plans, elevations, and these are the actual views from the model. I could actually come in and click on this third floor plan. And right here is where you can go to interactive view, where you actually now once it prepares my viewer, can zoom in, take a look at any properties of this object or this file, and I can actually come in and start selecting objects. Now I'm actually going to back out a little bit, back to my document list, because I find this much cooler when I'm actually in a 3D view. So these are all my 3D views. Now it does capture your visibility state when it creates these. So you've got a bunch of views here. Now I found this 3D architectural one's the coolest one, but it takes quite a while to load. So I'm just going to grab this exterior walls model. And you see here I can look in here, but if I switch it to interactive mode, this again is utilizing the DWF viewing technology that they've now made mobile. So there are mobile applications for Buzzsaw, so you can access all of this on your tablet or your mobile phone. I can actually now come in and use my little view cube, come around and start doing some navigation here, spin things around. Again, I can activate the properties, and as I start selecting items, it's going to start listing these Revit properties. Again, giving people access to this data that you don't want in your Revit models. You don't want them opening Revit. But it's all here, it's all active and easy to find and navigate through. So that's a really quick look at Buzzsaw. Again, that is more for project management than 360. I find more for internal file management. Now, this tool is great. I just got back from Autodesk Tech Camp last week, and they delivered all of the data sets through what's called Buzzsaw Sync. They shared a specific Buzzsaw file with me. I picked where I wanted it on my hard drive, so I got to choose, and then it's like Dropbox for Buzzsaw. When they posted new files, they just come into my machine. What you do is you find your folder, right-click on it, and say you want to do Buzzsaw Sync. You do have to sign in with the credentials that are given to you. And then you can say, when do you want to update? You know, daily at 1 a.m., continually, that's more like the Dropbox account, or manually. I actually have to right-click and initiate the synchronize. But it's a really cool tool, and it also allows grouping, permission control, and file access controls. So we could see all of the files in there. I actually could not delete or modify any of the files. Now, when I say that, I can delete the files from my machine, but it doesn't delete it from their Buzzsaw site. But then the next time I synchronized it, it re-downloaded them all. But then you just go in and say you just want to do a manual synchronization. This is really cool technology that we're starting to see more rolling into some of the Autodesk's tools when it comes to collaboration. As you see down here, the data is getting closer to live. Still not quite there, but it's getting a little bit closer. There's also Vault Collaboration AEC. So many of these. I'm glad I'm here to help clear the air a little bit. So Vault Collaboration AEC, I find is, again, for more internal file management, but it's way more intelligent than just Autodesk 360. So you can take your data inside of the Vault and start to categorize it according to if it's model data, drawings, Revit files, if it's just project information like emails, Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, specifications, and start tying them to projects. So if you get an email that's for project X and you see, okay, there's some specs in there, you can just go up to your Outlook and say, sync it into my Vault. It plugs it into the Vault, you pick your project, it puts the email in, it puts the document in, any attachments in. It's really cool. Now this one is a great tool here. These life cycle states, as well as rules upon those life cycle states. Anyone a BIM manager here? Who here likes control of which families are available for your users to use? Absolutely. You can start to put statuses on these. Are they in progress? Are they just under review? Are they released? And you can then say, okay, all of my users only have access to the released files. And you can do this for the entire Imperial library if you wanted. Go through and say, nope, 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 yep, these 6 are good. the basic door is garbage. I'm going to make my own door and put it out as released. Who puts out a door without a frame? But that's one of my favorite things. And this is not only in Vault, but if they go to Insert Family through Revit and go to the library folder you've established, they can't see the ones that are under review or in working progress. So good tools for BIM managers to start really taking control of what good things can go in the model and what crap cannot go into the model. It also helps with revisioning, so as the file updates, you can go through numbering and naming. It's got tie-ins to the major design applications, Microsoft Word, Excel, Outlook, things like that, AutoCAD, Revit, Inventor, Civil 3D, everyone's getting the tie into Vault. It's got some nice viewing tools, but this is another one of my favorite things, is drag and drop. If they're in the Vault and they search for a specific family and they have Revit open, they can just drag it right over into Revit, it's loaded, and the tool is up with that family selected. Which we'll see right here. I actually do not have Vault installed, so this one will be a video, so bear with me on this one. But in Vault, it's more of a very intelligent Windows Explorer. So you see we have all of our files on the left. What we're doing here is actually just creating a report to see how many of my files in this project are released, are a work in progress, or the purple is unassigned. I can then go and start tying this project itself to other applications that I have. So here's some floor plans, PDF, but maybe I just received an email. And in that email there was a specific specification that I wanted. You see, I just went right up to my Vault tools and said, check it in, pick my project, hit OK. When we go back to the Vault, you'll see right away that that email is now attached into the Vault, so I can go get it at any time. The email itself is there, but also any attachments that were in that are also in here. Now, most file types are available in the viewer. There's naturally a few that aren't, but the files themselves will still be in there that you can retrieve and open and do whatever you need to. You can also go to Revit files, open them up, and if it went a little bit fast for you, let me back that up just a second. You see it's actually keeping versions. Those were all versions. When they were updated, who updated them, and the file size changes. You have a little viewer in here that you can now explore the model, and then we're going to go ahead and open this model. So here it is, opened up in Revit. So now we realize, according to code X, we need a door on that side of the building. I know I have in my Vault a library of doors. So I'm going to use my Find tool. I can type in some search text, query out a glass door. Once I find it, notice he's just going to drag it right into his Revit project. The door tool activates, that family's selected. You know, naturally you'd want to be a little bit more precise with your just random placement of a door. But once we synchronize with Central, because we've got this file tied into the Vault, there was nothing really special that needed to do. We just synced with the Central. It's going to sync with the Central. If you're using Revit Server, that's fine. It will do all Revit Servers magic, which we'll talk about in just a bit. But then we have a new version. And if we go to our viewer, you'll see right away that our little DWF viewer is now up to date. Once again, these files are getting more and more live with these viewing technologies and how we're running through. This next part talks about exporting a DWG, boo, and then just checking, also put it into the Vault. I'm going to skip that little piece. So that's...
Does Vault, is there like a plugin possibly coming to automate bringing content in or accessing through Revit, or do you always have that Vault?
The question is there a plugin inside of Revit, or it kind of works like the old Navisworks plugin. When you install Vault, it looks at all your applications that are on your computer and installs plugins as necessary. Now, there is a Vault tool in Revit that you use to initially sync it with the Vault.
Okay, but not like an automated palette that you can actually bring content. You have that Vault open to bring content.
I don't think it needs to be open if you click the the send to vault or check into vault, it will then open vault and do all of that for you. Now there's two parts of vault. There's the vault client and the vault server, I think is what it is. Everyone would use just the client, and the client's a pretty lightweight tool. All right, so kind of running back on this old slide, we're starting to see everyone starting to put data into this vault. Now this is where the confusion I had originally between Vault and Buzzsaw. Vault and Buzzsaw, well, what's the difference here? Like I said, Vault I found was mainly for managing your own internal files, their progress, how they're going. Once you want to start collaborating, within Vault there's a upload to Buzzsaw link, and then that's where you can start distributing files amongst extended project teams. So it's all being done up in the magical cloud. Everything's getting cloud computed these days. So now I want to tie this all back to the first slide that I popped up, where I feel they are starting to apply. So inside your own enterprise, this is where we're going to see Autodesk 360, Vault Collaboration AEC, Revit Server. Now I didn't have time to show Project Blue Streak. Has anyone seen Project Blue Streak? Right, 2, 3. What it is, it's on the labs, which is labs.autodesk.com. It's a free download. It's kind of like an instant messenger for Revit, or for basically Autodesk applications, really. You can link it to your work shared projects, so that when someone sends a request, you know, you'll get the little pop-up in Revit, but also your little blue streak will pop up, and then you can actually chit-chat back and forth through Blue Streak and send good information back and forth. So look into Blue Streak. It's a pretty cool tool. Outside of your enterprise, again, Vault Collaborate AEC via the send to Buzzsaw. Again, like I said, I picture Vault being more of an internal tool. Outside your enterprise is Buzzsaw Sync, allowing you to set up project control, permissions, users, things like that. And then Revit Server, and I put in a little caption there with clarity because we'll talk about that. So, worthy mentions, things I didn't want to really dive too far in, but I think they need to be talked about. A lot of people, remote desktop, it works, it does a decent job. Problems with remote desktops is a lot of lag time depending on how big your pipe is. Graphics can take a little bit longer to display. You sometimes get some wonky behavior if you're using remote desktoping. It doesn't necessarily allow for collaboration with third parties safely, and I put in quotes, without our IT magic. You know, getting people permissions into our firewall, poking little holes in, letting them in, but only seeing what they should be able to see. And there have been instances with with license sharing that can break your Autodesk licensing agreement, so be a little careful with that. Couple tools, BIM 9 and Advanced 2000. These are very similar to remote desktoping, but you're doing everything through their cloud computing technologies. Now, some of the downfalls of these is the files are stored in their environment. So if you have government jobs that have very specific security requirements, these tools may not be an option for you. There also will be similar lag. Now, these tools have acceleration techniques that decrease some of that lag a bit, but there are maybe chances of violating your licensing agreement if it's done in specific ways, and I can't really get too deep into that because I don't know the legality there. Anyone using Revit on Citrix? All right, no one. We have a couple customers that do use Revit on a Citrix environment. It works really nice, but there are, again, a couple performance and lag issues. The problem with this is you do need to get special licensing from Autodesk, which can cost a lot more money. And then WAN accelerators. We talked about this a little bit earlier. This isn't software, it's a piece of hardware with a lot of setup involved with your IT teams. But ultimately, there's no industry focus on how this works. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into Revit Server, which should be the next slide. So, Revit Server. What is Revit Server? It's the server component for Revit. that enables work sharing across multiple office locations. Now, even in some of Autodesk's marketing, they say single company with multiple locations. Can also work on a single project with other design teams, but we'll talk about some of the downfalls with that. It is the foundation for work sharing across a wide area network with Revit. So, a really quick example, just diagram here, is there's a central server, and that can be in any of your office locations, but that's where the main file gets hosted, the central file. Then there are what are called local servers, or they've now been dubbed in 2013 local accelerators. They have a replicated copy of the central file. The users do the same things they've always done. Go to that central file, create a new local file, reload latest, check things in, check things out, sync with central. The users don't experience all that much of a difference. So this is how we typically do it in a local area network environment. You know, we're all just kind of sending to and from the central model. In a Revit server environment, this is now being done over the WAN. So instead of everyone in the same office or remote desktoping in, we have people in, you know, LA, Chicago, Seattle, Kansas City, China, wherever. So the way Revit Server really works is, again, the central model is located over here on the host. It is being data replicated to these local accelerators. And again, the users create their local model from this local accelerator. They check things in, they check things out, they save their files and sync to central. Now, the big problem with work sharing across a wide area network when Revit Server is not in use is when you hit sync to central, it's sending 350 megabytes. That's why sometimes your sync to central can take 3, 5, 20, 30 minutes. I've heard stories of an hour to sync with the central file. Now, WAN accelerators help with that, but you're still sending the whole model and then receiving just huge amounts of data. So what Revit Server does is it uses local area network speeds to send the big pieces. And then it looks at the replication and looks at the host on the central file and says, only these pieces are different. I'm going to only send 2 megabytes. So the way Revit Server really works is it's sending the delta changes, not the overall changes. The overall changes get sent within the LAN. The major data is happening at the fast speeds. The delta changes get sent across the WAN, and they're synced through Revit Server. So it's using your bandwidth more efficiently. You know, it's really nice. I've made some changes to a Revit file, synced it, and it only sent like 150 kilobytes. It was really impressive how it works. Now, with this, there is a couple of things that I need to point out. The reload latest is pulling from the local accelerator. The model update is happening locally, but to element borrow, the user still has to be able to ping the host, because it's the host server that's controlling element borrowing. So that's the key there for you IT guys, is they have to be able to ping both servers. Now, the 100 millisecond latency is assumed. Anything less than 200 is considered instantaneous. But ultimately, they have to be able to see both of those servers for this to really work. Now, how are the users going to, oh, this is crazy. How am I going to talk to this server and talk to that server and get into my files? It's actually quite easy. So I'm going to hop into Revit really quick. And first, on the Collaborate tab, when you've got the Revit server installed, you'll be able to come right here and say, connect to my Revit server. You'll need to plug in the IP address, the server name, however you wanted to connect to that. And then the user just simply goes to open, but this time, instead of going to their server where their local or their jobs typically are, the only change they'll really experience is they come down here where it says Revit Server. There's my Revit Server models. Go to my projects. There they are. If I open up this Grange project, there's my Revit files. I open them up and start running with them. Now, a key thing here is Revit Server only applies to RVT files. The RFAs, the RTEs, they all can stay wherever your Imperial library is. But that's really the big change that's going to happen on the user front, is they just need to go to a slightly different place to access those files. Now, notice this slide is slightly different. I was just in Revit 2012. My slide here is from Revit 13. Notice it says Revit Server Network this time, because some new features in 2013 is you can now have multiple hosts. So if the Seattle office is heading up Project X, but the San Francisco office is heading up Project Y, you could have multiple hosts, but still be passing the data in the exact same way. Aggregating your local servers, they're now called accelerators, because saying the central and the local central got a little confusing really quickly. There's some accelerator to host failover, which if they lose connection to the local server but still have connection to the central server, they can still talk. It's compatible with Vault AEC, and so there's some of the key bullets of what's new in Revit 13, Revit Server 13. So now, Revit Server is amazing technology, but it does have one big inherent problem, and that is with Revit Server, everyone in the ecosystem will see everything from every project, which this is why a lot of people are not implementing Revit Server, because they don't have permission control to say, you're working on Project X, you're working on Project Y, but I don't want you touching Project Y. Another thing is this technology is amazing for sharing models. The models are always being essentially live. But if I'm architect A and you're structural engineer B, and you're only working on one job, but I've got 20 jobs in my Revit server, guess what? You get to see all 20 jobs, regardless. That seems a little bit of a security issue. IT people are probably cringing at the hole in the firewall they'll have to punch to get people into here. So this makes working with multiple organizations very troublesome, very risky. And again, like I said, some government jobs have very strict security controls that this would never be allowed. So, this is the part where I'm hoping the IT guys have not fallen asleep yet. Quick troubleshooting. Now, I'm not going to show how to set up your Revit server. There are some videos and documents out there, but some common issues that will arise. So, if you cannot connect, check your journal files that are created, and just make sure that your model name is in model server and current server. Just make sure that that is connected to the correct environment variable. Step 2, verify your installed services. There is a list in the documentation of everything that needs to be installed and active. Make sure they're all installed and active. It doesn't check and tell you I'm missing this one or I'm missing that one. It just fails. On that same line, make sure those services are running. So you do have to go into your services, locate Revit Server, AutoSync, and verify that they all have been started. Number 4, projects and cache folder locations. They need to be, they need creator owner security, and their special permissions set to allow. So again, just some things that aren't very well documented, but they can be issues. Are the users checking compact file at save? If they're having trouble syncing with that central file, this is probably the issue. They have compact at server checked, which is, the file is 350 meg, but if you check compact at save, it's now compressing it to 300 meg, which now the delta has become much different. So it's essentially redoing the whole file up and down again. So that's a simple checkbox on their end. If you are experiencing this, this is what the error will look like if you check out the journal file. All these slides are going to be made available afterwards, by the way. Firewall settings, ports 80 and 808 cannot be blocked. That's because 80 is the HTTP port for Revit Server, and 808 is used for TCP communication. You never thought it would be this intense, right? If you're getting the TCP error code, not area code, you are going to have to go and make sure that your enabled protocols read http, net.tcp. And I think I've got one more. Workstation needs access to the central server. Yes, that's where I was saying they have to be able to ping that central server. That's so they can check in and check out their work shared items. If a workstation cannot ping the server, you cannot work with that project. Simple enough. So, hopefully this white slide woke you up, maybe blinding now. I want to talk really quickly about clarity. I'm going to try and not make this sound too much like a sales pitch. Looks like I've got about 10, 20 more minutes. Whoops. So clarity is a tool that we examined Revit Server and saw its power. And we saw a few gaping holes in its functionality that we felt we should patch. So it is our tool. It's a web-based tool that is an add-on to Revit Server. So Clarity is not a standalone product. You add it on to Revit Server. That provides model sharing across multiple organizations and provides project-level security. Those are the two key ones I want you to take out of this. If you want to see the full Clarity demo, give us a call. We'll gladly show you. I'm not going to do the full thing. So ultimately, you take your Revit Server, everything that is good and great and powerful about Revit Server, and we added this encompassing set of tools, the big one being security. There's also some tools to manage, from the IT side, manage the performance of your Revit Server. Storage space, how your network bandwidth, if you have spikes in your bandwidth, processor cycles, RAM. Again, just kind of keeping an eye on when the spikes are happening. Task automation, we can have it export DWFs, PDFs, DWGs every night at 1 a.m. of all of the views in the model or specific ones. And then there's some nice reporting tools to get out like room data sheets. So you can export schedules from Revit. Very impressive. So the first one here that I really wanted to show, because this fills in that huge security issue within Revit Server, is this project security inside of Revit, in which, like I said, I can come in here and I go to my Revit Server, and if I am the structural engineer and I'm only supposed to see this Grange project, what happens is the administrator of the Revit Server and the Clarity site just jumps in here. We go to the users. It's probably going to ask me to log in again. I can come in here and say, all right, this particular user should only have access to that one project. And then I just hit update. And now if I was fast enough, I could have shown that it was instant. But I come back in here and you see it takes it away. That's the only files I now have access to. I can't even see the other ones because I have not been assigned to those files. So that's one of the big pieces that we're very proud of when it comes to being able to utilize the functionality of Revit Server across multiple organizations. Some task automation things, again, trying not to make this too much of a sales pitch. But there you go. That is the world of collaboration in 45 minutes. Anyone have any questions? Yes, sir.
So do all team members need to have Clarity?
No. The way that Clarity works is on your central server, you install the Clarity plugin. On your local server, you install the Clarity plugin. That's it. Users are created via that website that I showed. And Greg mentioned earlier there are now 2 versions. The Enterprise Edition, unlimited users. The lighter version, it's 25 users. But all they need to do is just get assigned a username and a password in which you can use, I'm drawing a blank on what it's actually called, Active Directory, to just automatically populate your user lists. And
But how does it work with, like, so typically you like link in that architect's file to the file. Does it work similarly where you would have you link in the architectural file to the layer of the server and just automatically update?
the question is about file linking and how you would link in their files. You do it essentially the same way with Revit Server. So in here, notice I have my architectural folder, MEP folder, structural folder. I would link in that central file. Now that's the file they're working on. So when they make changes and sync to the central, it's as up to date as my Revit Server is keeping it up to date. And then you just go to your manage links and refresh it when you need to. So the actual linking of files isn't going to change too much. It's just where the files are now stored. They're stored in that Revit Server area in your file browser.
How would it work then if you had, like, so say you have an architect and an engineer, they each have to have an accelerator server, and then one of them has to, or the architect would have
Yeah, the question is, do they each need to have a local accelerator server? And then just the host server stays? That's exactly how it works. Typically, the project head, usually the architect, would host the main server, and then anyone would just do the local accelerators on their server, but they just need to be able to connect to that central server as well. Windows 2008 or 2008 R2. That's the really big requirement there. Yeah, they could run it on an existing box if they wanted. And in fact,
I almost think you could create a separate project environment.
a lot of people are creating a separate, smaller box just as their Revit server. People who have like a Citrix environment, they're just installing a virtual machine. That's how I'm running it, is my Revit server is just on a virtual machine. And we can, I could actually call one of my colleagues in Boston and have him connect here, and he could be changing our files, and we could be seeing those updates right here, and it's just on my laptop. Good question, thank you. Yes? The question is, how does the WAN accelerator still function? Because it's only sending delta changes. It's just going to speed up the little pieces that are getting sent. So you could... It depends on the WAN accelerator. It depends on the WAN accelerator. There's a ton of different manufacturers out there. But yeah, it's essentially just speeding up that little transfer there.
I'm not understanding because the way the WAN accelerator speeds up is by just sending deltas.
But with the Revit files, I don't think it actually is doing just deltas with Revit files. I'm not sure. Yes?
You guys dug into the API for the server. Is there a possibility for a client, i.e. workstation-based client, for the Revit server where you don't need an entire server box setup?
I don't know.
Okay. Thought I'd ask. Fair. We've asked Autodesk and they kind of need the same.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. That was good. I'm going to have to definitely review those slides. That was a lot to keep up with. But no, that was good. Thanks a lot for coming out and doing that presentation. That was excellent. We do have a drawing. Everybody got their cards in. So before we scoot out of here. Mr. Gregg, would you like to help with the honors in here.
Don't hold it up too high.
Don't hold it up too high? Yeah. Were there other cards? We good? We covered? Okay. So we have, so the first one will be the Amazon $50 gift card, and then followed by, so you definitely want to be the first draw. Yeah. So,
Ken Olszewski.
yeah.
Hi.
Oh, look at that.
There you go.
How about that? Score, always good to be the first one drawn. Must be present to win. We're not going to mail these out.
I'm digging.
So a couple, you want to just pull two out there, and we'll just call them both?
Pam Derry. And James Replogle. Okay.
We here? All right, $25 Starbucks. Nice. Okay, well, I want to thank, obviously thank Bryan Cowles for the great presentation. Appreciate it. So he'll be around if you have any follow-up questions. We'll get the videos posted here within the next week or so, so definitely check back to the SeaRUG site. We'll also make a PDF of the slide as well, so that'll be up there. Greg and IMAGINiT Technologies also will be around. I'll be around here if you want any sponsorship questions. Next meeting, June 20th, and that's all. If there's some food and water left over, you can grab something, and we'll see you next month. Thanks, everyone.